Hi, it's John DeVore. Welcome back to another video from the DeVore Fidelity YouTube channel. This is Lulu Bear, making herself comfortable, I hope. Today I'm going to talk about a couple of records from my collection, and the way I chose these records is a little different from the previous video, although it's still related to all the closures of the performing arts centers. My wife and I always get some subscriptions every year to Carnegie Hall. We get one to the main hall to see great American orchestras. We get one to Zankel Hall, which is the new music, so it's smaller ensembles generally and more contemporary compositions, Philip Glass, things like that. And then the third subscription we get is a Quartets subscription in the Weil Recital Hall, which is surprisingly small, beautiful sounding, and very intimate space. And more often than not, that's my favorite subscription. So tonight, if Carnegie Hall wasn't closed, we would be going to Weil Recital Hall to see the Pacifica Quartet do a program of quartets that I was really looking forward to, and it contains a couple of quartets that I like a lot. The first one on the program was Ligeti, and I don't know that one as well, although I am a fan of some of his compositions. And then the second piece, Gesundheit. The second piece is by Mendelssohn, and it was going to be the third quartet by Mendelssohn, which is part of the opus 44. It's the first of the three quartets in that opus. And it was considered one of Mendelssohn's favorites. It's a beautiful, it starts out fairly lighthearted, and it's nice, it's got great energy. Mendelssohn made a lot of incredible music when he was very young. This was composed in his 20s, and that's considered a mid-period for him because he actually passed away in his 30s. But this piece is definitely one of my favorites. He was a Jewish composer who lived in the first half of the 1800s. And this is considered sort of romantic or classical. I think this piece is maybe slightly more towards the classical in style, but it's very accessible, beautifully melodic. The pieces, just the parts fit together beautifully in a real Mozart sort of way, but maybe not as predictable as a Mozart. Hopefully I'm not going to get a ton of hate mail for saying that. I do like Mozart. It's got great energy. Also, this performance is beautiful sounding. It's a great performance by the Julliard String Quartet. It's an epic release. This is a mid-60s release on LP. I think it came out in stereo and mono. I have it in stereo. The soundstage is beautiful. The textures of the instruments are right on. There's a drive and a momentum to the performance on this record that I think is quite fitting to the piece. Also, the sound of this record is fitting to the piece. It's got a light quality to it, but still with great texture, wonderful instrumental placement within the soundstage. It's a great sounding record. The last piece in the program that I'm not going to be able to see tonight is from Shostakovich, who is known. He was a Soviet composer, quite heralded by the Soviet Union, and he's known mostly for his symphonies, but he did compose a few quartets, maybe a dozen or so. Actually, they're probably all in here. Numbers 1 through 15 are in here. This is a box set with a picture of Shostakovich with his awesome glasses. This was composed in 44, so right towards the end of World War II, and was heavily influenced by Jewish melodies. A lot of sort of some of the klezmer melodies and things like that from the 20s and 30s coming out of Russia and probably the Ukraine, things like that. It's a much more somber piece, as you would expect for the time and for the composer. Much more somber than the Mendelssohn is. But I guess the tie in here, Mendelssohn was also, he was a Jewish composer. And for a time after his death, didn't really get the credit that he deserved, I think, possibly from some anti-Semitism. But more recently, he has become one of the most popular composers. So I guess that's a thread that the Pacifica Quartet was weaving through this performance that I just occurred to me. Anyway, there's a few things to talk about the performances on this are magnificent. It's the Fitzwilliam String Quartet. This performance has the gravitas and might required of this. It's quartet number 2, and the recording on this one is magnificent. So, not so long ago, Michael Fremer released a video, I think for Ken McAuliffe's YouTube channel, and he talked about what a fantastic value box sets are. They're not looked at as being that desirable by a lot of collectors. Maybe something akin to a greatest hits collection versus picking up the original records from an artist. And this is an interesting situation because this cost me very little money. It's marked as a London FFRR here, which could mean it's decent sounding, but it's not really anything to be that excited about. But then when you open it up, it is in fact a Decca FFSS recording, and these tend to be beautiful sounding. These are, examples of these are all the famous London bluebacks or Decca bluebacks that we would have seen in the US. And this is a great sounding record. The sound of the record, again, with the quartet spread out beautifully in the sound stage. The tonality of this recording and really of the performance is more focused on a little bit of the gravitas, but also the sort of the sonorous quality, the resonance and woody quality of the instruments. And it really has weight and presence. This is a beautiful sounding record. And for the most parts, I'm guessing that these box sets are going to be found in the discount bins. So potentially an excellent value for an enormous amount of great music. Number 2 is certainly one of my favorites in the collection. It has, so some of the Shostakovich stuff can be a little bit difficult to get into, maybe a little bit challenging. This is not challenging. This is beautiful. It's certainly more modern than the Mendelssohn compositionally, but it has a sort of power and majesty and beauty that is very easy to get hooked on, and all of a sudden you're sitting through the entire performance of his, I think, second longest quartet, probably 15 minutes, no, probably more than that, probably 30 minutes or so of music on this. Plus you have the other 14 string quartets to work your way through. It's there's a lot of great music in this. That's my LP recommendation for today. I hope everyone has a good weekend and stays safe. And thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks a lot.